Hello everyone and welcome to today's lesson. Today's lesson at the Butterfly Princess Academy, where curiosity takes flight and wisdom wears wings. In today's lesson we're going to be learning about Westminster Abbey. Today's lecture is entitled Westminster Abbey, a living chronicle of history, heritage and human endeavour. So here goes. Introduction. Standing as a sentinel of time on the banks of the River Thames, Westminster Abbey is more than a church. It's a pest of British history, a masterpiece of Gothic architecture and a beacon of global heritage tourism. For over a millennium, this hallowed site has witnessed coronations, royal weddings, and the final the final resting place of monarchs, poets, and pioneers. Its stones whisper tale of medieval piety, Tudor ambition, and modern stewardship, and pulsating the evolving identity of a nation. Historical foundations. From monastery to monarchaic stage, origins 960 to 1066, sanctuary and sovereign. Westminster Abbey's story begins in the 10th century when St Justin, Archbishop of Canterbury, established a small Benedictine monastery on Thorney Island. A marshy tract later drained to form part of modern London. However, it was the Edward the Confessor who reigned between 1042 and 1066, a king revered for his assassinationism, who transformed the site into a grand Romanesque church. Edward's vision was both spiritual and strategic. He sought a royal burial place that would escape the Anglo-Saxon shires of Winchester and solidify Westminster as the seat of power. Completed in 1065, just days before his death, the abbey became a pilgrimage site when Edward was canonised in 1161. His shrine adorned with golden jewels. Reconstruction 1245 to 1517. Gothic ambition and Tudor grandeur. In 1245, Henry IV, inspired by French cathedrals like Rheims, initiating a radical Gothic redesign to honour Edward the Confessor. The new abbey featured pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses, engineering marvels that allow walls to soar upward, pierced by vast stained glass windows depicting biblical narratives. The Henry VII Lady Chapel, 1503 to 1519. 1503 to 1519, added under the Tudor dynasty, and to Gothic with its vaulted ceiling, a stone lacework of pendants and treachery. This chapel, funded by Henry VII's luxurious wool trade taxes, also housed the Tudor Rose, symbol merging diverse worship and dynastic propaganda. Key events, rituals of power and memory. Coronations since William the Conqueror's crowning in 1066, the Abbey has hosted 40 coronations. The coronation chair, commissioned in 1296, remains central to this ritual. Its oak frame encasing the stone of Scone, a pointing symbol of Scottish submission until its repatriation in 1996. Royal weddings. The 1947 marriage of Princess Elizabeth, who became later known as Elizabeth II, to Philip Mountbatten, and the 2011 union of Prince William and Catherine transformed the Abbey into a stage for global media spectacle. Burials and memorials. Poets' Corner begun with Chaucer's 1400 burial, now honours literal giants like Dickens and Tennyson. Scientists such as Newton and Hawkins rest near monarchs, reflecting the Abbey's embrace of Enlightenment ideas alongside medieval traditions. Architectural and cultural heritage, a Gothic symphony in Scone. UNESCO status, a global treasure, inscribed in 1987 as part of the Palace of Westminster and Westminster Abbey World Heritage Site. The Abbey is recognised for its Gothic architecture and uninterrupted role in British governance. UNESCO notes its outstanding universal value as a site where history, art, and spirituality intersect. Design highlights engineering and symbolism. Flying buttresses. These external supports visible alongside the nave redistributed the weight of the vaulted ceiling, enabling taller walls and large windows. The 13th century chapter house with its octagonal design and tiered seating hosted Parliament's persecuting the King's Council. Cosmetic pavement, crafted in 1268 by Italian artisans, this intricate mosaic floor in the sanctuary uses purple, green and glass to form cosmic patterns, symbolising eternity. Its Latin inscription warns of the world's end in 19,683 years. Stained glass, the Great West Window, 1735, known as the Window of the King's Futures. 16th century glass salvaged from monasteries dissolved under Henry VIII, a poignant reminder of the Reformation's upheaval. Tourism appeal, pilgrimage in the modern age, visitor dynamics from debutees to debutantes to day trippers. Pre-pandemic, the Abbey welcomed 1.3 million annual visitors, generating £25 million in revenue funds critical for preservation. Post-COVID, time ticketing and virtual tours launched in 2021 have adapted to shifting demands. Key attractions, stories in Scone. Royal tombs. The effigy of Elizabeth I, crowned and holding an orb, and is set to contrast with Mary Queen of Scots' sombre marble monument, a Tudor-era propaganda victory. Museum treasures. The Abbey's museum displays lifelike funeral effigies, including Charles II's wax figure dressed in his actual garter robes, offering a marble glimpse into Baroque monastery practices. Coronation chair, scratched with graffiti by the 18th century schoolboys for choir. The choir enables both reverence and irrelevance. Its weathered wood testifying to centuries of use, guiding tours, curating narratives, theme tours cater to diverse interests. The literal pilgrimage route explores Poet's Corner and the memorial to the Brontës sisters, while Monarch and Murgis delve into the Abbey's role in political intrigue, such as the mysterious 1678 murder of Sir Edmund Barry Godfrey. Challenges and preservation, guardians of the Gothic, environmental threats, the cost of fame. The Abbey's limestone is eroding due to air pollution and moisture from visitors beneath, a problem exacerbated by London's traffic. The Dean's Yard project 2018 to 2023 used laser ablation to remove blackened, suffocated crust, while line monitor repairs followed medieval techniques. Balancing sanctuary and access. As an active church, the Abbey reserves the choir of the Shire of Edward the Confessor for worshippers. Morning prayers and eve songs are held daily, with tourists asked to observe silence, a policy that sparks debates about prioritising spirituality over revenue. St Paul's versus Westminster Green identities. While St Paul's Cathedral, built in 1675, embodies what Worm's Barrett vision and post-fire resilience, Westminster Abbey's Gothic roots tie it to the pre-Reformation Catholicism. St Paul's emphasises Protestant sermons. The Abbey retains medieval charters and shires. Global peers, echoes of eternity. Notre Dame de Paris both share Gothic grandeur, but Notre Dame's 2019 fire underscored vulnerabilities absent at Westminster, which benefits from modern conservation. St Peter's Basilica. Like the Abbey, St Peter's Basilica, art, faith and burial, yet its papal connections contrast with Westminster's royalism. Multimedia interrogation, breathing life into history. 3D reconstructions, time travel for the digital age. The Virtual Abbey project, launched in 2020, allows users to explore a 16th century reckoning of the site, complete with demolished structures like the medieval monks' dormitory. Audiovisual immersion. Lectures might feature recordings of the Abbey choir whose tremble voices have sung the two at Coronation since 1727, a time lapse of the 1953 coronation preparation juxtaposes medieval ritual with Cold War era logistics. Case study: the 2023 coronation. Charles III's coronation required installing temporary ramps for disabled access and fibre optic cables for global broadcast, a feat reconciling heritage with 21st century inclusivity. Key takeaways: the Abbey is a mirror of Britain. Westminster Abbey endures not as a relic but as a living institution, adapting to modernity while honouring its past. Its survival hinges on ethnical tourism and funds conservations without confronting sanctuary. In its stones and stories, the Abbey reflects Britain's journey from feudal kingdom to multicultural democracy, inviting each visitor to ponder the place their place in this unbreakable chain of history, in this broken chain of history. Westminster Abbey, a journey through time in Scone, nestled in the heart of London where the Thames whispers tales of centuries past. Westminster Abbey rises like a sentinel of history. It's by, right, right. Rises like a sentinel of history. Its spires piercing the sky in the silent ode to the ages. More than a church, this UNESCO World Heritage Site is a living museum, a sanctuary of art and a stage for the drama of British monarchy. For millions of visitors each year, the Abbey is not just a destination, it is a immersive voyage into the soul of a nation. A portal to the past, the Abbey's historical allure. Stepping through the grand north door, visitors are enveloped in an atmosphere thick with legacy. Founded in 960 as a Benedictine monastery, the Abbey's current Gothic form owes its grandeur to Henry III, who in 1245 envisaged a shire worthy of Edward the Confessor. The Saint King, whose remains lie unshielded in the chapel but bearing his name. The Abbey stones have borne witness to every coronation since 1066, when William the Conqueror claimed the throne here. The coronation chair, a withered oak relic from 1296, still stands in St George's Chapel. Its aged wood cradling the stone of Scone, a symbol of unity between England and Scotland. The Abbey's role as a stage for royal spectacle extends beyond coronations. In 2011, the world watched as Prince William and Catherine Middleton exchanged vows beneath the fan-vaulted ceiling of the Henry VII Ladies' Chapel, their union echoing the 1947 wedding of Queen Elizabeth II. These events transformed the Abbey into a living theatre whose ancient rituals meet modern media frenzy. The Abbey's architecture is a symphony in stone, a testament to medieval integrity. The nave, soaring to 102 feet, is a forest of pure-bred marble columns, their rhythmic arches drawing eyes upward to ribbed vaults adorned with golden bosses. Light filters through stained glass casting kaleidoscopic views on the pavement, a 13th century mosaic floor and onyx that shimmers like a jeweled tapestry. Above the chorus, the chapter house, a 13th century optical marvel, boasts a vaulted ceiling supported by a single central pillar. Its walls, once lined with monks' manuscripts, now echo with the footsteps of tourists marvelling at its medieval tile work. Meanwhile, a poet's corner in the south transept is a literal pilgrimage site. Here the tombs of Geoffrey Chaucer, Charles Dickens and Tennyson rest alongside memorials to Shakespeare and Austen, their names etched into the Abbey's cultural DNA. Treasures and tales, the Abbey's unmissable sights. Every corner of the Abbey tells a story. The royal tombs are arid like a stone dynasty include Elizabeth I, her effigy regal and imperious, and her rival Mary Queen of Scots, entombed in a poignant counterpoint. Nearby the grave of the unknown warrior, a World War I soldier laid to rest in 1920, draws quiet crowds reflecting on sacrifice. The Queen's Diamond Jubilee Galleries opened in 2018, offer a trove of artifacts, funeral effigies of Tudor monarchs, illuminating manuscripts, and the marriage license of William and Kate. For many, the highlight is the Westminster Abbey Museum, whose wax effigies of Charles II and Elizabeth I, dressed in their original garments, blur the line between history and haunting presence. The visitor experience rituals and reverence. A visit to the Abbey is a sensory pilgrimage. The scent of aged wood and incense mingles with the soft murmur of guides recounting tales of intrigue. Guided tours peel back layers of history. The Royal Resting Place tour reveals secrets of the cryptic, while hidden highlights explores the PYX chamber where medieval treasures were once stored. At dusk, the evening service transforms the Abbey. The choir's harmonies, unchanged since the 16th century, resonate through the nave as sunlight fades through the rose window. For a moment, tourists and worshippers alike united in stillness, the weight of centuries pressing gently on their shoulders. Preservation amidst pilgrimage, balancing act of modern tourism. With 1.3 million annual visitors, the Abbey faces challenges as delicate as its 700-year-old glass. Humidity from breath and rain threatens ancient stones, while footfall erodes the cosmetic pavement. A recent £19 million restoration using lime mortar and laser cleaning has stabilised crumbling facades, yet the Abbey's dual role as a working church complicates access during services. The Shire of Edward the Confessor is reserved for prayer, a reminder that sanctuary trumps sightseeing. In global company, what sets the Abbey apart? While St Paul's Cathedral dazzles with its Baroque dome and Notre Dame captivates with its Parisian grandeur, Westminster Abbey's uniqueness lies in its unbroken role in British ceremonial life. Unlike the Vatican, St Peter's, the Abbey, is not a relic of a bygone theocracy, but a living institution where past and present coalesce. Its UNESCO status, shared with the Palace of Westminster, underscores its dual identity as a spiritual and political landmark. To walk through Westminster Abbey is to traverse a timeline etched in stone and stained glass. It is a place where poets, kings, and scientists rest side by side, their legacies woven into the fabric of a building that refuses to be frozen in time. For tourists, it offers not just a glimpse of history, but a dialogue with it, a chance to touch the cold marble of a tomb, to stand where monarchs were crowned, and to hear echoes of chants first sung a millennia ago. In preserving its sanctuary while embracing its role as a global icon, the Abbey embodies a delicate dance between reverence and accessibility. It is ultimately a monument not just to the dead, but to the enduring human quest for beauty, memory, and meaning. As long as its spires shadow the Thames, Westminster Abbey will remain a beacon, inviting the world to witness the enduring dance of history and heritage. Westminster Abbey, where Scone whispers secrets of crowns, quills, and inclusivity. Beneath the shadowed vaults of Westminster Abbey, time folds in on itself. Hearing the scent of aged incense and the soft rustle of tourist maps lies a labyrinth of stories, some etched in gold, others hidden in the grain of an ancient oak. The coronation chair, a throne steeped in mystery, crouched in the dim light of St. George's Chapel. The coronation chair is no ordinary seat. Carved in 1297 from sturdy English oak, its weathered surface bears the scars of history, graffiti scratched by 18th century schoolboys, gorgeous from souvenir hunts and ghostly imprints of countless monarchs. Commissioned by Edward I to house the Scone of Scone, a 335-pound sandstone slab seized from Scotland in 1296, the chair became the unyielding symbol of English dominance. For centuries, kings and queens have knelt upon its creaking frame, their coronation marked by the stone's whispered legend. It was said to be Jacob's pillar from the book of Genesis, carried to Scotland via Egypt and Ireland. The chair's secrets run deep. Beneath its seats, a hidden compartment once held the stone during World War II to protect it from Nazi bombs. In 1950, Scottish nationalists briefly stole it, dragging it back to Scotland in a daring heist before its return. Today, visitors can still see the 12th century Latin graffiti. Here is the seat of the king scrawled by a mischievous monk, a reminder that even sacred objects bear the irrelevant marks of humanity. Poets' Corner, where words are immortalised in stone. In the south, transept sunlight filters through stained glass to illuminate Poets' Corner, and the Acropolis of quills and parchment. It began with Geoffrey Chaucer, the father of English literature, who was also the author of the Canterbury Tales, who was buried here in 1400, not for his Canterbury Tales, but because he served as a clerk of works to the abbey. Over time, his grave became a magnet for literal pilgrimages, and by the 18th century, the corner had grown into a Parthenon. Charles Dickens lies here, his grave deliberately plain at his request, yet surrounded by flamboyant memorials to Lord Byron, added in 1966 after a century of moral objection, and Jane Austen, whose modest stone plaque belies her global fame. The most poignant is the memorial to the Brontës sisters, a solitary slab inscribed with lines from Jane Eyre, the clear heaven of a glorious noon. Even those without graves are honoured. Shakespeare's statue gazes passivity from a niche, while a modern plaque to T.S. Eliot quotes, "Four quartets in my beginnings is my end." The air hums with the whispered verses. Tour guides recite Blake's beside William Wordsworth's tomb, while school children leave pens in sonnets and on Oscar Wilde's memorial, transforming the corner into a living dialogue between past and present. Architectural marvels, a Gothic symphony in stone. Westminster Abbey is a living textbook of architectural evolution. Its bones are rooted in the 13th century Gothic vision of Henry III, who sought to revival France's chapel. The nave of 102 feet high is a masterclass in medieval engineering. Flying buttresses channel way onward, allowing walls to dissolve into stained glass. Above the altar, the great east windows produced in 1469, bathes the pavement a 14th century mosaic of gold glass in eternal light. The Abbey's metamorphosis from Benedictine monastery to Coronation Theatre is etched in the stones. The chapter house where monks once gathered for daily readings, later housed England's first parliament. The Henry VII Lady Chapel, built in 1503 with its fan-vaulted ceilings resembling stone cobwebs, introduced Renaissance flair to Gothic tradition. Even the club where monks once meditated now guide visitors to the Queen's Diamond Jubilee Gardens, a modern exhibition space hovering 52 feet above the Abbey floor. In 1987, UNESCO recognised the Abbey as a masterpiece of human creative genius, not just for its beauty, but for its uninterrupted role in shaping Western governance and culture. Accessible heritage bridging the past and the present. Westminster Abbey's greatest modern triumph lies in its refusal to become a relic. While its stones whisper of antiquity, its commitment to inclusivity speaks to the 21st century. Wheelchair ramps discreetly weave through medieval chapels, and tactile stores allow visually impaired visitors to trace the contours of the coronation chair or feel the cool smoothness of the pavement. For neurodiverse guests, sensory-friendly mornings reduce crowd and noise, while Braille guides and audio descriptions decode Gothic symbolism in vivid detail. The Abbey's virtual reality app even lets users walk through a 16th century reconstruction, hearing monks' chants and seeing long-lost frescoes. This ethos extends to its rituals. During the 2023 coronation of Charles III, sign language interpreters stood beside the throne, and ramps ensured disabled delegates could approach the altar. A stark contrast to the exclusivity pomp of earlier centuries. Westminster Abbey is more than a monument. It is a conversation in its shadows. The coronation chair murmurs of power seized and contested. Poets' Corner resonates with ink-stained dreams, and Gothic arches frame a commitment to welcome all. Here a child in a wheelchair can gaze up at the same vaults that awed Elizabeth I, and a blind visitor can touch the stone of Scone, feeling the weight of history in their palms. The Abbey's genius lies in its duality. It guards the past fiercely, yet reimagining itself constantly. As sunlight filters through 700-year-old glass, illuminating both ancient tombs and modern access ramps, it reminds us that heritage is not a fortress. It is a bridge spanning centuries and souls alike. So here's a cultural analysis. Westminster Abbey stands as one of Britain's most iconic institutions, embodying over a millennia of religious, political and cultural history. From its origins as a Benedictine monastery to the modern role as a UNESCO World Heritage Site and active church, the Abbey has shaped and been shaped by the nation's identity. Right. The Abbey's right, so I've read that much, we've been through all that. Since William the Conqueror's coronation on Christmas Day 1066, the Abbey has hosted 40 coronations, unifying Norman and Anglo-Saxon traditions. The coronation chair, built in 1301, housing the Scone of Scone, became a focal point, symbolising both English dominance and Scottish subjection. The chair's graffiti, including 18th century schoolboy carvings, underscores its lived historical texture. The Abbey's status shifted dramatically during the Reformation. Henry VIII's dissolution of the monasteries in 1540 ended its Catholic Mosaic role, but Elizabeth IV re-established this as a Church of England royal peculiar in 1560, directly to the monarch. This dual identity, sacred space and political instrument persists today. Henry VIII, right, so we've read that. Read that. No, Matt. The tomb of the unknown warrior in 1920, interred with sorrow from French battlefields, embodies national mourning for World War I losses. Meanwhile, modern martyrs like Martin Luther King Jr. are memorised in statues linking past and present struggles. Active church and tourist management, read that. Read that. Westminster Abbey transcends its role as a static relic. It is a symbol of British history where Chaucer's pilgrims, Cromwell's soldiers, and modern tourists tread the same stones. Its endurance lies in its duality, a sacred space for coronations and funerals, and museums of national memory in a bridge between medieval spirituality and 21st century inclusivity. As the Abbey approaches its 1000th anniversary, it remains both a mirror and a marker of British identity. So here are some thoughtful educational questions and answers on Westminster Abbey. So, question 1. How did the Reformation under Henry VIII transform Westminster Abbey's role in British society? Answer. The Reformation marks a pivotal shift for Westminster Abbey in 1540. Henry VIII dissolved the Mosaic community as part of his break from the Catholic Church, stripping the Abbey of its Benedictine identity. However, Elizabeth I re-established it in 1560 as a royal directly to the crown rather than the church hierarchy. This transition transformed the Abbey from a Catholic monastery into a Protestant institution central to royal ceremonies. Its new role emphasised state power over religious orders, cementing its dual identity as both a sacred space and a political symbol. The Abbey retained its function as a coronation and burial site, but became a tool for reinforcing Anglican authority and Tudor legitimacy. 2. What does the coronation chair symbolise, and why has it been a source of political tension? Answer. Commissioned in 1297 by Edward I, the coronation chair embodies the unification of English and Scottish sovereignty. Its incorporation of the Scone of Scone, seized from Scotland in 1296, symbolised English dominance, making it a contentious emblem of the subjugation. Scottish nationalists famously stole the Scone in 1950, highlighting its enduring political significance. The chair itself, with its graffiti ware, reflects the lived history of monarchy. Today, its use in coronations underscores continuity and tradition, while the Stone's 1996 repatriation to Scotland on loan for ceremonies represents modern effects to reconcile historical grievances. Question 3. How does Poets' Corner reflect Britain's literary and cultural legacy? Answer. Poets' Corner, initiated by Geoffrey Chaucer's 1400 burial, evolved into a parthenon of Britain's literal greats by memorising figures like Shakespeare, Dickens, and Austen. It enshrines the written word as a pillar of national identity. The inclusion of diverse voices, from the rebellious Lord Byron to modernist T.S. Eliot, mirrors Britain's evolving cultural landscape. This space not only honours individual genius, but also fosters a collective memory, inviting visitors to engage with literature as a living dialogue. The practice of adding contemporary writers such as Ted Hughes ensures the corner remains a dynamic reflection of Britain's literal heritage. Question 4. In what architectural ways does Westminster Abbey showcase the evolution of Gothic design? Answer. The Abbey is a textbook of Gothic innovation. Henry III's 13th century reconstruction introduced French Gothic elements like pointed arches, ribbed vaults, and flying buttresses, enabling unprecedented height and weight. The Henry VII Lady Chapel, erected in 1503, amplified Gothic with its fan-vaulted ceiling resembling stone lace. Lace traditions such as the 18th century West Towers blend Baroque influences without disrupting Gothic harmony. The Abbey's UNESCO designation recognises this layering of styles, illustrating how medieval engineering and Renaissance aesthetics coalesce into a cohesive masterpiece. Question 5. How is Westminster Abbey addressing modern challenges like preservation and accessibility? Read that. Why is Westminster Abbey considered a living monument to British identity? Answer. The Abbey's uninterrupted use of coronations, royal weddings, and burials ties it to the living pulse of British society. Its walls chronicle over 1,000 years of history, from medieval piety to imperial grandeur to modern multiculturalism. By interring figures like Stephen Hawking and hosting events like the 2011 Royal Wedding, it continually adapts to reflect contemporary values. As both a working church and a UNESCO site, the Abbey bridges sacred traditions and secular modernity, embodying the evolving narrative of British identity. Rhetorical questions and insights. 1. What does it mean for a single building to hold the weight of a nation's soul? Insights. The Abbey stones are more than architectural marvels, they are vessels of collective memory. From the coronation of William the Conqueror to the funeral of Elizabeth II, it has framed pivotal moments where power, faith, and identity converge. How does a structure absorb the hope and fears and contradictions of a people across centuries? Insight. The Abbey's endurance suggests that heritage is not static, but a continuous negotiation, a dialogue between the past ideals and present demands. Can a throne be both a symbol of unity and division? Insights. The coronation chair, scarred by graffiti and time, embodies the paradox. this paradox. Its incorporation of the Scone of Scone from Scotland in 1296 made it a tool of colonial exertion. Yet in 1996, when the stone was symbolically returned to Edinburgh on loan for coronations, the chair became a fragile emblem of reconciliation. What does it reveal about power that even sacred objects must evolve to survive? Why do we entertain poets along kings? Poets' Corner began as an accident. Chaucer was buried here for his day job, not his tales. Yet over time, the orbiting child writers as secular saints, elevating art to the realm of the divine. Is this a subversion of the Abbey's religious roots or a testament to literature's spiritual power? The inclusion of rebels like Byron and radicals like Oscar Wilde memorialised in 1995 complicates the narrative, suggesting that even hollowed spaces must reckon with deceit. How does Gothic architecture shape our understanding of the sacred? The Abbey's vaulted ceilings and stained glass were designed to inspire awe, channeling light as a metaphor for diverse revelation. But these features also served political ends. Henry III's Gothic overhaul mirrored Francis St. Chaplin asserting England's heritage, cultural piety. Can architecture be both a prayer and a propaganda tool? The Abbey's UNESCO status today answers yes. It is a living masterpiece where art and authority intertwine. What does preservation sacrifice when it prioritises actors? The Abbey welcomes 1.3 million visitors annually funding conservation but risking erosion. The cosmetic pavement and its 750-year-old mosaic now hides under protective carpeting, visible only on guided tours. Is this a necessary compromise or loss of authenticity? Similar modern ramps and tactile shows make heritage inclusive, but subtly alter the medieval fabric. Preservation, it seems, is a dance between memory and modernity. Can a monument outlive its original purpose? Founded as a Benedictine monastery, the Abbey survived Henry VIII's dissolution by becoming a church beholden to the crown, not the Pope. Today it hosts Hindu weddings and interfaith services. Does this adaptability ensure relevance, or does it dilute its identity? The answer lies in its dual role as a spectacle and a sanctuary for quiet reflection, proving that institutions endure by embracing contradiction. Final reflection. Westminster Abbey is not merely a relic, but a mirror. Its stones reflect the tensions of empire and democracy, tradition and progress, exclusion and inclusion. To walk its aisles is to confront questions without easy answers. Who decides what history we honour? How do we balance reverence with reinvention? In these paradoxes, the Abbey teaches us that heritage is not a fixed truth, but an ongoing conversation, one where every visitor becomes a participant in reshaping its legacy. Closing thoughts. Westminster Abbey is a living testament to time. Westminster Abbey is more than a monument of stone and stained glass. It is a living chronicle of human ambition, artistry and adaptation. Over a millennium, it has evolved from a Benedictine monastery to a coronation theatre, a museum for the luminous and a UNESCO treasure. Its walls hold the echoes of whispered prayers, triumphant coronations and quiet mornings, each layer of history revealing the tensions between power and piety, tradition and progress. The Abbey's endurance lies in its ability to straddle contradictions. It is both a sacred space and a tourist continuity, a relic of medieval Catholicism and a symbol of Anglican identity, a bastion of monarchy in a domestic classroom. Its survival through the Reformation, the Blitz and the pressure of modernity offers lessons in resilience, reminding us that heritage is not preserved by skepticism but by reinterpretations. And here are some ideas for future study. The ethics of heritage tourism. So here are some questions you could ask yourself if you choose to go on to further study about Westminster Abbey. How do sites like Westminster Abbey balance commercialisation with conservation? What can global heritage sites learn from the Abbey's approach to accessibility, for example, tactile tours and sensory-friendly hours? Comparative architectural analysis. Compare the Abbey's Gothic design with contemporary global sites like Notre Dame or Florence. How do regional politics and religious ideologies shape Gothic expression? Right, so analyse the 2023 coronation of Charles III as a case study. How do ancient rites adapt to contemporary values like inclusivity and environmentalism? I'm just going to read through this. Westminster Abbey teaches us that history is not a fixed narrative, a text continually written by each generation. Its Scone challenges us to ask, what will future civilizations see in our additions? Will ramps and audio guides be viewed as acts of inclusivity or intrusions? As climate change and political upheaval threaten global heritage, the Abbey's story urges vigilance, creativity, humility, and stewardship. For scholars and visitors alike, the Abbey remains an invitation to touch the past, question the present, and imagine the future. In its shadows, we are all temporary custodians of eternity. The ethics of tourism. Right, Westminster Abbey, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, insists the delicate dance between commercialism and conservation. With over 1.3 million annual visitors pre-pandemic, the Abbey generates vital revenue through entrance fees. The entrance fee, the charge is £27 per adult. Guided tours and gift shops selling medieval inspired merchandise. These funds sustained its £19 million restoration project, such as the 2018 to 2023 conservation of crumbling pinnacles and polluted stoneworks. However, the Abbey's ethnical strategy extends beyond mere profit. It employs time ticketing. It employs time ticketing to migrate, overcrowding, and reserve for daily worship, enduring its sacred purposes endures. Global heritage sites like Peru's Machu Picchu struggle with over tourism, where foot traffic erodes ancient pathways. The Abbey's model offers lessons. Tactile tours allow visually impaired visitors to trace the cosmetic pavement, intricate mosaics, while sensory-friendly mornings reduce noise for neurodiverse guests. Such inclusivity, paired with a virtual reality app offering 16th century reconstructions, demonstrates how accessibility can coexist with preservation. The challenge lies in avoiding the unifications of living history, a pitfall seen by Venice's sinking basilicas, where sites become sterile exhibits rather than vibrant cultural spaces. Westminster Abbey's Gothic splendour mirrors Europe's medieval ambitions, yet diverges its political intent. Its flying buttresses and rib vaults echo France's Notre Dame, built in 1163. Built between 1163 and 413, but whereas Notre Dame symbolised Paris's rise as a theological hub, the Abbey was a royal project asserting England's parity with French grandeur. Regional ideologies shaped these designs. Notre Dame's rose windows glorified Catholic orthodoxy, while the Abbey's chapter house housed proto-parliaments, blending spiritual and secular governance. The Gurmo's green and white marble facade, a civic emblem, diverges from the Abbey's astute limestone, underscoring how Gothic architecture served as both divine homage and political propaganda. Initially, internment here required Abbey employment. Chaucer was clerk of works, but by the 18th century it became a tool for national myth-making. Memories to Shakespeare, 1740, and Austen in 1967 reflect shifting values. Romantic era variations of the bag versus modern feminist reclaiming of Austen's legacy. Omissions reveal biases. Lord Byron deemed morally suspect, waiting until 1969 for a memorial, while post-colonial writers like Derek Walcott remain absent. Recent additions, such as the 2023 plaque to wartime poet Keith Douglas, signal a broader, more inclusive canon. This curation mirrors Britain's evolving identity from imperial to multicultural society, yet questions linger. Who decides which voices immortalise a national soul? Colonial legacies in sacred spaces. For stones of the Coronation chair houses that. Westminster Abbey's 2019 Virtual Abbey project employs 3D scanning to map erosion patterns, guiding restoration with pixel-perfect precision. VR tours let users walk through a 1503 reconstruction hearing. Monks Georgian chants, a tool prioritised for access but critique for diluting the aura. Walter Benjamin is deemed essential to art. While digital models saved Notre Dame's spire during its 2019 fire, purists argue screens cannot replicate the awe of standing beneath the Abbey's 102-foot nave. Yes, as climate change threatens heritage site, Venice's aqua altar, Petra's sandstone decay technology may be the only bridge between past and future. Modern rituals reimagined. Chaucer's first coronation fused tradition with 21st century ethics. The recycled gold initiative saw regalia repaired with ethical source materials, while multi-faith leaders delivered blessings, a first in the Abbey's history. Sign language interpreters translated the and electric vehicles replaced horse-drawn coaches, nodding to environmental concerns. These adaptations mirrored Japan's imperial household, which modernised environmental rights in 2018, blending Shiso rituals with press conferences. Yet critics argue such changes risk totalitarism. The coronation's £100 million cost clashed with authentic austerity Britain. Heritage is a mirror of human ambition. Westminster Abbey, in its layered legacy, challenges us to see heritage not as a relic but a reflection of power, identity, and the eternal tension between memory and progress. Its stones touched by pilgrims and kings, poets and tourists, asks how will we preserve the past without entombing it? In answering, we shape not only the Abbey's future, but also our own. And that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, concludes today's lecture at the Butterfly Princess Academy, where curiosity takes flight and wisdom wears wings. I would like now to take this opportunity to thank you all for joining me at the Academy for today's lesson, and I very much hope that in the near future you will be able to join me for more lessons here at the Butterfly Princess Academy. But until then, take care, and I will see you very, very, very soon. Bye bye for now.